Welcome to the Talented Learning Show podcast series, episode 91 with independent learning tech analyst John Lay. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome back Brett Strauss, president, founder, chief channel enablement strategist at NetExam LMS, to discuss the latest innovations and challenges in channel partner education. Find more of our fiercely independent content at talentedlearning.com. Well, welcome back, listeners, to the Talented Learning Show podcast. In this series, I'm lucky to interview the world's leading experts in extended enterprise learning from both the vendor and the practitioner perspectives. Today, from the vendor expert side, we're diving deep into the evolving world of channel learning technology with one of the most experienced leaders in the space. Brett's been a driving force in channel education for over 20 years. And while most LMS vendors originally focused on employee learning, he built NetExam to specialize exclusively in partner, dealer, customer, franchise, distributor enablement training. And unlike many LMS providers that have broadened their scope over time, NetExam, well, they've broadened theirs too, but they broaden it and make it a bigger impact in channel and customer learning and the related parts inside employee systems. But a lot's changed since we've last had Brett here. It was almost 2 years ago in 2023. And so what we wanted to do today is get an update. What's changed in the industry? What are the new challenges? What are the new solutions? How's AI having an impact? Where's it all going in channel learning? That's what we're going to find out today. We get a great update. Brett, welcome back to the Talented Learning Show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, John. It's been too long.
It has been too long. It has been too long. In our defense, you joined me on the Customer Ed Nuggets podcast, our other podcast, a few times last year. So we did get some updates that way. But sure back here, we really want to focus, man. So much has happened in the industry, but maybe that's for you to say, since we've last met 2 years ago, it's been some progress. What do you think have been the biggest changes in the industry since then that everybody should be aware about? Let's start there.
Well, you can't ignore AI and the effect it's had on learning. I think of all the industries that have been affected by AI, none has been so much as learning and education, just because it has revamped the way people think about not just creating content, but better understanding how users are consuming content and allowing for a customization down to a level that no one ever really imagined, where each individual user's strengths and weaknesses can be analyzed and courses can be built on the fly to meet the demands of each user, not just for their weaknesses, but even customized to how they prefer to consume learning. Some people might want to get a PowerPoint deck. Some people might want to listen to an audio podcast. Some people might want flashcards. Systems now can learn more about each individual user, understand how they best consume information, and customize training for that individual. Your goal shouldn't just be, I want everyone to do my training. Your goal should be, I want everyone to get as close to 100% on all of my training as I possibly can. And the only way you can do that is having AI analyze that much data.
And so contrast that for us. What was it like a couple of years ago? What would be the difference? Just one size fits all?
It's one size fits all. Maybe you can try and encourage people, motivate them a little bit with incentives to try and go back and try and get that 75 up to an 85 or a 90. But now the system can, especially with NetExam, can actually look, let's say you go through and you take a class and you get an 80. The system can come back and say, hey, if you'd like to get 100, I will create a brand new course that just covers that 20% you failed. So we can dive in on that, and it'll be just for you. It'll be just the things that you had the weaknesses on, and then you can come back in and get 100% the next time you take it. In the past, it was just, here's where your weaknesses were. Go back and take the course again and cherry pick what you need to out of it. But now it's very customized.
Wow. And can you deliver that then in incremental bits and bytes to somebody, over time to help close that gap, or is it you create a course?
Absolutely.
Is it both? Doesn't matter.
The best thing is that it can look how the user consumes data. Some people want to sit through a 2-hour PowerPoint. Some people would rather get a 5-minute, little piece of information each day for a couple of weeks. But the system can actually learn how you best as an individual consume information and customize that delivery to you. That's really exciting because there's a huge gap between older people like myself that are going through training and education, and the younger people that have that TikTok mindset and they want little 30-second bursts of information, when they want to consume it. There's a vast difference between the two, and having a a learning management system that can know which person you're dealing with and custom build a training program for that individual is pretty cool.
Hmm. I think I'm older than you, so I might resent that
I don't
remark.
think you are.
So now with channel organizations, they have all this new capabilities at their fingertips with AI. I'm sure that brings new challenges. What are the biggest challenges you think that these organizations face now, and is that different than what they were facing a few years ago because of this new technology or in general?
Well, I think one of the tricky things with AI, of course, you realize this in the beginning, everyone was afraid of AI, and then everyone came back and said, well, we like AI, but we're worried about our data being out there. We kind of combated that by creating a private LLM for each of our customers. So it's not the Wild West, it's not Chat GPT. We create a private LLM that just that organization controls and has access to. Now, it has the limitation that it can only learn from the information provided by the organization. But we usually go into their marketing information, into their training information. We educate it with that, but they have total control over that. And I think that was one of the sticking points originally with people adopting AI. Now I think there are so many options. It's just a little hard for people to kind of get their arms around it, right? There's so many things that you can do. I mean, the first impact I think I saw in the last year and a half is that the cost of developing content has just plummeted. And that you don't have to have 10 people on staff creating courses. You can have two people on staff reviewing courses that AI develops. And AI can, in a lot of cases, do a better job. Not a perfect job. I wouldn't trust AI to build a course and spit it out the front without having a human review it. But I think you can dramatically shift your revenue from course builders to course reviewers and then change basically your structure of how your finances are being spent on your training program.
Interesting. That brings up a point I've been wondering about. So AI makes these teams more efficient from a content creation standpoint. Do they take, so if it only takes a team of 10 and now you're down to this team of two reviewers, what about those eight? Are organizations repurposing those eight people, or are they using that as a cost savings opportunity?
We're
Any
seeing them
data on it?
we're seeing them repurpose them, but you've got different companies in different phases, right? But most of the organizations we deal with are repurposing them into other places where they can get more benefit from the money they're spending on them.
Mhm.
It's just the idea of developing courseware from the raw sitting in front of a blank PowerPoint and reading them, reviewing the material and typing that out. That's just so unnecessary. And it's so much more cost efficient. We've got the ability to generate a course in under 10 minutes, to translate it into a dozen different languages, to create high stakes, high quality exam questions and answers in literally under 10 minutes. And the fact that it might take someone or several people months to do that in the past, it's really kind of changed the game on content development. But it's also changed the game on customizing content for each individual because it can be done so quickly and so efficiently. You can have an LMS that understands what each user and how they consume data and custom build training for that individual user. That's really exciting stuff.
Wow. Interesting. So what about back when we talked a couple of years ago, we were just starting to float with the idea that there wasn't any difference between customer education and partner education. Because as you know, traditionally, really up to that point, they've been two different swim lanes, or it seems to be two different swim lanes. What do you think now? 2 more years out in the marketplace, were we right about that trend? Is it coming together, or are the swim lanes staying separate? What's going on?
I think the economy at the time pushed the two things together. And they said, look, these are both extended enterprise. They're outside of our brick and mortar. Let's treat them the same. There are some differences, and they are not identical, but they're much more aligned than, say, partners and employees. I think you're much more closely aligned with internal salespeople and partner sales. Their needs are very, very similar. They're 90% similar. But one difference we're seeing in customer training is like the way you analyze ROI of partner training, you're looking at overall sales, you're looking at renewals, you're looking at how quickly are your customers getting up and running. how well are my partners educated, and what are they doing to help the customer become a better consumer? But on the customer training, we're analyzing different things, right? We're analyzing renewals, we're analyzing a reduction in support calls, things of that nature are how you measure and analyze your ROI of your customer training. I do think that extended enterprise LMSs in general are very different than HR LMSs. And, we talked about this before. We had no plans of building an extended enterprise LMS. We built an LMS for McAfee, who was our very first customer. It just so happens that McAfee was using it to train their partners, not their employees or anyone else. We Forrest Gumped our way into building an extended enterprise LMS. We had no plans. We just realized one day, hey, we've built this thing. It's unique. No one else is doing this. Let's just do this. Let's turn away all HR business that comes our way and just concentrate on this extended enterprise space so that every new feature and every new function we added will benefit other people that have partner organizations. And it's really worked to our benefit.
And what are some of those features that partner organizations need definitively that the other two groups, customer and or employees, don't need? What are some examples of that?
Partners are very much aligned with your global sales program, and you're going to have different partners in different countries and different parts of the United States and different states that will concentrate on different specialties. Some will be selling into education, some into government, some into K-12, some into corporate. So you've got different needs for different organizations, but the big difference in a traditional HR LMS and a partner LMS is that you're moving groups, right? HRLMS is you want to get someone from the mailroom to the boardroom in a dozen years. With a partner LMS, I want to get a certain partner from 2 million to 4 million in sales in 2 years, or I want to get some of my 80% size partners into the 20% that are making up the largest portion of my revenue. You're trying to push groups, you're herding groups together. And in doing that, you have to have individual goals for individuals within that partner organization. But the overall goal of that company, that partner company, needs to align with the goals that you've set for that individual partner. And there's going to be sales goals, there's going to be training goals, there's going to be number of contracts signed, all sorts of different things. And training is just a piece of the pie, but it's a very deep, very important piece of the pie because you can measure it and you can tie it to revenue and improvements. It's a very measurable thing.
And so you mentioned 3 or 4 different revenue metrics. Why don't we revisit those real quick? What do you think, you run into a new opportunity every day. What are the top things that they're measuring? Is it those 4, or is it broader than that now? Or you find a new things to measure as we get smarter and better data handlers?
Well, there's a lot of stuff to measure, but I think most people want to understand, is my training working? Is it moving the needle, right? And being able to analyze what partner sales, individual even partner sales or organizational partner sales are before they've met training goals and after they've met training goals, and be able to have an A and B comparison. It's important to do that. It's important because you want to be able to even promote that. Keep in mind, if I'm training my partners are selling all my competitors' products too. So I'm fighting for space in their brain, in their mind, in their day. It's important that you tell and show these people, hey, if you take this course on how to sell XYZ product, you should expect to see a 5.7% increase in sales after completing this course. You need to be able to analyze the difference between the before and after, and you should use that number to promote it back to those partners and say, this is what you should expect when you complete this course. This is the improvement it should have in your business.
Do you think that this is more relevant in some industries versus others? I mean, I guess you have to have a channel partner network. Maybe a better way to ask that question is, what do you think the leading industries are, pushing this forward in the world?
I think security is a big one. Obviously,
Right.
it's changing every day. The bad guys are coming up with new ways to break into organizations. And the weakest part in a company, it used to be the technology, and now it's the people. It just is. I mean, that's how people are getting in. They're hacking people basically. The ability to push out constantly updated training is critical in that industry. Just because it's, every a month is like a year in the rest of the world, right? New ways of hacking into organizations, new phishing scams, all sorts of ways to break into systems. But I think that's one of the most prevalent ones that we're seeing.
from the AI standpoint that we were talking about before, everything that you talked about was really around the generative features of that. What about everything else with channel and AI? Is it impacting other parts of your solution or the industry or solutions feeding into yours? Like, is it broader than that? I guess just the generative part.
We're seeing it, but it's kind of piecemeal. Some people are taking advantage of it. I mean, most of the partner programs that we're dealing with, our customers are using training as a stick and carrot. And so they want to give some type of privilege in return for meeting those training goals. And I see some organizations are using AI to analyze and deliver that as well. Most of our customers, if you reach some level of certification, then your company might start getting new leads generated, or you might get a higher margin on the deals because they know that certified partners are closing more deals. So they'll give them a little bit of a bump. Obviously, because of our integration with Salesforce and other PRM systems, those privileges are instantly given. People want instant gratification. If I pass that course, then within 5 seconds, I want to start getting those new leads, or I want to get that better margin. And I am seeing more AI used in that relationship between the delivery of those two things. But I think the biggest impact we've seen has been on course development and customizing the learning experience for each individual user. I think that's the biggest shakeup we've seen.
Interesting. You mentioned earlier that about the adaptive nature of the content and really how it's getting easier and easier to give everybody exactly what they want. But one of the trends, we have a few common clients, you and I, or NetExam and Talented Learning over the years. And one of the things that we bumped into, it seems like, is there's a shift from just knowing how to do something to proving that you can do that. Is that something that's continuing in your world? Is there more of these hands-on activities, whether that's, I don't know, either uploading a video or ripping out a spark plug, manually? Is that kind of stuff becoming more prevalent, or is it about the same as it was before?
No, it is. And one of the easiest things that we've been seeing, and we rolled this out with Oracle a few years back, is the ability for partners to be able to do a sales pitch and record a video, and then we use AI to analyze and grade that on the back end. But one thing we've rolled out that's new just in the last 6 months is actually a live AI sales simulation, where an individual AI gives you information and says, look, I'm an executive with a security company. We have 500 employees. We sell primarily into the banking industry. Sell me on your latest McAfee product, right? And so the McAfee partner will do the sales pitch. The AI will analyze everything that's been said, transcribe it, analyze it, and then the AI individual that you're doing the sales pitch to will actually do a follow-up call, a follow-up question, say, okay, we're considering buying our second largest competitor. It will triple our size and it will break us into the European market. Now, what would you recommend? And then it can come back, and it's really kind of a conversation back and forth. There's no prep. It's not about PowerPoint slides and memorizing numbers. It's really about listening to the individual, solving their problem, using the products you have at your fingertips, and how well you do that. That's a really cool feature. And
Wow.
you could even get to a point where you're saying, okay, I'm going to go pitch Oracle on Friday on our products. Go out, analyze Oracle's current business model, where they are, read the latest news about Oracle, and then come back and I want to do a practice pitch to an Oracle AI executive. It's getting to that point where you can do dry runs ahead of time with an AI that understands deeply about what's going on in that company based on business and press releases and things like that. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, pretty cool. What about the tracking and measurement of something like that? Is does the receiving side of that, like the database side of keeping track of all these interactions, like what are you tracking in actually something like that? Like how much detail?
Well, you're looking for the details phenomenal. I mean, it can come back and say, look, you were great on product knowledge. You gave me good pricing. You didn't ask for a contract. And you seemed a little hesitant in the way the conversation went. So we can even analyze emotion in some cases, which is pretty phenomenal, and give feedback and say, this is where you can make improvements the next time you do this. It's doing things that humans just couldn't wouldn't have the bandwidth to pull off. I mean, it would really, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to have a one-on-one connection with a live person, and they could only handle one person at a time, right? So you can imagine that it wouldn't really scale very much when you've got tens of thousands of partners out there.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing all this cool stuff for partners. You're developing it. You're teaching them how to do all this stuff. It's parallel to the stuff that the internal sales force needs, as you mentioned. So how do you handle it? How does that get handled?
It's very, honestly, it's very similar. I mean, the only difference that we see between the internal sales and the partner sales is some of the pricing information and some of the information they'll keep private within the employee groups. But oftentimes we will be in an organization, they will roll out partner training, it will be very successful, and then the internal salespeople will say, we want to put our people on and get training as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so in those cases, what happens? Do you share your content, or those users just come on to
It
the partner
depends.
system?
It depends on well, number one, it's not our content, it's our customers' content, but
Sure.
it depends. Oftentimes, they will have an additional training course that will have some kind of privy information. Obviously, you don't give everything to the partners, that's internal. And pricing information might be different. But for the most part, it's very similar. It should be similar. I mean, the benefits, why people should be using this product, what's the quickest way to get a sale. All that information should be identical, whether it's internal or external.
What are the biggest mistakes that organizations make with channel learning? What's the common mistake that everybody trips up on?
Honestly, and we've talked about this before, it's trying to cram your partners into an HR LMS and get by with it. It's just not, they just aren't built the same way. And trying to get by with that is, I see people just falling behind and not really getting the most out of that relationship that they should be getting. I think that's the most common thing we run into. And I get it. Economy's tough. C-level executives are coming in and saying, why do we need two LMSs? We already have an LMS. I just think a lot of people miss the gap that there's a huge difference between the audiences and what those products do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I believe that is the case. I believe that is the case. I see it all the time, because what ends up happening, I think, is you get used to just getting by,
Yeah, you get
and
the bare minimum.
that's great. I mean, you get the bare minimum, but in 2025, this is an opportunity for competitive differentiation in your organization as a whole, not just in your training organization. So getting by means that your organization isn't capitalizing really on everything that
You're
they
leaving
could.
money on the table. You just
Exactly.
are. And like you said, you can get by, but if you aren't doing more, I mean, we're dealing with companies who are relying on their channel partners for 60, 70, 80% of their revenue. If you're going to skimp on that, that's a problem. You need to be throwing your efforts into your channel partners because it's such a huge part of the revenue for most businesses. It should get the focus and the attention and the investment.
Mm-hmm. So you talked a lot about what's coming with AI in terms of the content and really that next level. But if you look forward, I don't know, 3 or 4 years in the future, or maybe just 2 years in the future, we'll have you back in 2 years in the future. What's going to be different about partner learning at that point?
Wow. One thing we're seeing, I think, is a move toward using training as a partner tool in the sales process. Meaning, I could, let's say I've got, 24 people I'm calling on this month. I can send each of them a quick little email that has a quick 3-page PowerPoint with facts about our products, right? And at the end, there's a 5-question quiz that says, hey, we just want to confirm that you absorbed this information. And you know what? When you finish this, I'm going to give you a $10 gift card for Starbucks coffee on us, right? And if for the individuals that go through and make that effort, that automatically gets dropped into Salesforce as a qualified lead for that partner that gets tied to the partner account. So I think we're seeing training. In the past, training was, let's put all the knowledge in the partner's brain and help them help the customer in the buying process. I think now we're starting to see, let's provide small training as a marketing nugget, as a tool, and as an arrow in the quiver of the partner that they can give to the customer and help use that to help create deals, soften them up, get them prepped for a closing opportunity.
What about mobile? Tell me what's going on. Is it back to mobile apps again, or is everything mobile responsive, or does it depend? Are you seeing a trend
Um,
one way or another?
I think it depends. I mean, obviously, everything's mobile. I mean, we were a little bit slow in adopting mobile maybe 10 years ago because I just felt like the iPhones or the phones in general were smaller. It was harder to see and people weren't consuming it. But now, I mean, let's face it, I use my phone probably 90% more than my laptop. And so we have some people that are requiring mobile apps, and we obviously have a dozen different mobile apps that we roll out that are customized for each of our customers. Some people, mobile responsive is just fine. They expect mobile responsive. It really kind of depends on the customer and the route that they want to go. We offer both, and we're willing to work with them in both avenues.
Why so many mobile apps?
Well, we've got customer apps, we've got informal training apps, we've got an app for conferences. So some of our customers will use our conference app to track who attends different conferences, who goes to breakout sessions. That's learning, that's information being transferred. You should be getting credit for that. The informal learning tracking allows you to give people credit for things that happen in the real world that don't fit into a course and an exam. So there's a lot of different little features that we built apps built for over the years, and they've just all been pretty popular.
Interesting. All right, last question. We'll wrap up here with the advice question. So this is different than what I was thinking I was going to ask. But if if you're just getting by, as we were talking about earlier, and you want to stop getting by and elevate it, you're getting by, you're fighting your way on an HR LMS. How can you make this an issue inside your organization? It's tight times. As you said, everybody wants to consolidate software. It just seems like such a big rock to start pushing up the hill. What's your advice to get this conversation started and get people caring?
Well, because it's tight times is exactly the reason you need to be considering this. You need to understand that there's a direct correlation between partner education and increased revenue. Direct. It's important to show that connection, to show the effect that this training increased revenue by this much. So we want to get more people using it. But I think you kind of laid out the reason exactly why you want to be doing that. If you require partner revenue for the success of your business, then you have to double down on making sure that those partners are qualified enough to get the deals closed, that they're given the right information necessary to do their jobs. You want to move that needle up, and that's the way you do it.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why I love extended enterprise training and channel training in rough times, economic times. It's always the trainers and the employee training and compliance. That's what takes the hit. But you know what? Even when things are super tough, you can't slow down the revenue coming in the front door.
You
So being a
cannot.
part of the revenue generating machine is where you want to be.
It does not matter what's going on in the real world. You got to keep
Good
the engine
economies or
running.
bad. All right. Well, sage advice. Thanks very much, Brett Strauss, who's the president and the founder and chief executive officer, the chief channel enablement strategy. He's got an index card. His card's so big with all his titles. Thanks for stopping by and catching us up on everything that's going on, like all areas of learning technology world. This segment's on fire, and all the innovation with AI and everything else is just changing everything. And thanks for bringing us up to speed. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks for your time.
You bet. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show. You can find more of our fiercely independent analysis and content at talentedlearning.com. You can find more about the NetExam LMS at netexam.com. Simple as that. We'll see you on the next. Have a great day, everyone.